Welcome to Krishna Bedtime Stories with the sound of rainfall. Story 5, The Butter Thief. Once upon a time, while child Krishna lay sleeping, Mother Yasoda began churning butter. To prepare this butter, she had personally collected milk from her own herd of cows and made yogurt. Because of the soft grasses upon which they grazed, these cows produced milk that was especially rich and flavoursome. While she was churning the yogurt to make butter, she sang about the childhood pastimes of her cherished boy. "Oh, my dear son, lay still in slumber. May heavenly blessings shower you without number. Oh, sweet child of my heart, life of my life. You are Nanda's darling child. His heart melts with your smile. Oh, sweet child of my heart, life of my life." As she was softly singing, on account of her intense love for her son, milk automatically dripped from her breasts, which moved as she laboured very hard, churning with 2 hands. The bangles and bracelets on her hands tinkled as they touched each other, and her earrings shook. There were drops of perspiration on her face, and the flower garland which was on her head began to scatter here and there. Before this charming sight, child Krishna awoke and felt hungry. Rubbing his eyes with his small fingers, he sat up and looked around. Climbing out of his bed, the barefoot boy ran urgently to his mother, hungry for her breast milk. Out of love for his mother, he wanted her to stop churning. He indicated that her first business was to breastfeed him, and then later churn butter. Mother Yasoda took her son on her lap and began to breastfeed him. While Krishna was sucking the milk, she was smiling, enjoying the beauty of her child's face. Suddenly, some milk which was on the oven began to boil over. Just to stop the milk from spilling, Mother Yasoda at once put Krishna on the floor and urgently ran into the kitchen amidst a flurry of movement. Krishna sat on the floor with his arms stretched out towards his mother as she hurried away. He was still hungry for milk, but he had been abandoned. Left in that state by his mother, Krishna became very angry, and his lips and eyes became red with rage. He pressed his teeth and lips, and taking up a piece of stone, he immediately broke the butter pot. He took butter out of it, and with false tears in his eyes, he began to eat the butter in a secluded place. In the meantime, Mother Yasoda returned to the churning place after setting the overflowing milk pan in order. She saw the broken pot in which the churning yogurt was kept. Since she could not find her boy, she concluded that he had broken the pot. She began to smile as she thought, "This child is very clever. After breaking the pot, he has left this place fearing punishment." After she searched everywhere, she found her son sitting on top of a big wooden grinding mortar which was kept upside down. Krishna sat cross-legged, looking just like a little king, and was distributing butter to his subjects, the monkeys. Oh, what fun they were all having. Then, as Mother Yasoda watched, She saw Krishna looking this way and that way in fear of her discovering his naughty behaviour. She picked up a stick and silently approached him from behind. Krishna, however, saw her coming with a stick in her hand, and immediately he got down from the grinding mortar and began to run away in fear. Mother Yasoda chased him all over, trying to capture the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never approached even by the meditations of great yogis. Because of her thin waist and heavy body, Mother Yasoda could not easily catch the fast-running child. Still, she tried to follow him as fast as possible. Her hair began to loosen, and the flowers threaded through her long, beautiful plait fell to the ground. Although she was tired, she somehow reached her naughty child and captured him. When he was caught, Krishna was almost on the point of crying. He smeared his hands over his eyes, which were anointed with black eye cosmetics, and he looked even more adorable. Krishna looked up at his mother in great fright, and crying sorrowfully, he began rubbing his eyes. The black ointment which encircled his lotus eyes smeared all over his face and mixed with his tears. Looking at the stick in her hand, Krishna admitted to all the mischievous things he had done. His crying increased, and he began hiccuping in terror. Mother Yasoda's heart was breaking to see her son so afraid of him. She could understand that Krishna was unnecessarily afraid, and for his benefit she wanted to calm his fears. She began to think, if the child is too fearful of me, I don't know what will happen to him. Throwing the stick away, she kneeled down beside her stricken son and said, "Krishna, you have been very naughty. I shall tie you up with some rope so that you cannot commit any further wicked behaviour today. And furthermore, for the time being, you cannot play with your playmates." Mother Yasoda did not know it, but it was actually impossible for her to bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She was thinking that Krishna was her tiny child. She did not know that the child had no limitations. Although he was unconquerable, she endeavoured to bind him to a wooden grinding mortar in the courtyard. But when she tried to tie him up, she found that the rope she was using was too short, by 2 inches. She gathered more ropes from the house and added to it, but at the end she found the same shortage. In this way, she connected all the ropes available in that home. But when the final knot was added, she saw that it was still 2 inches too short. Mother Yasoda's friends had assembled in the courtyard to watch and enjoy the fun. Holding their hands over their mouths, the ladies began quietly laughing at the amusement before them. Even Mother Yasoda began to smile slightly, but she was becoming more and more bewildered and thought, how is this possible? The rope is now hundreds of feet long, and still it is too short to bind my son. In attempting to tie up her son, she became very tired. She was perspiring, and the garland around her head fell down. Krishna appreciated the hard labour of his mother, and being compassionate upon her, he allowed his mother to tie him up to the mortar. Shaking her fingers slowly at him, she said, "Now, my dear boy, you shall remain here for a short time as punishment. Mother Yasoda returned inside and engaged herself in household affairs. At that time, bound up to the wooden mortar, Krishna looked around the courtyard and saw a pair of ancient trees known as Arjuna trees. The great reservoir of pleasure, Krishna thus thought, Mother Yasoda first of all left without feeding me sufficient milk, and therefore I broke the pot of yogurt and distributed the stock butter in charity to the monkeys. Now she has bound me up to a wooden mortar. So I shall do something more mischievous than before. And thus he thought of pulling down the two very tall Arjuna trees. There is a history behind the pair of Arjuna trees, which will be told in the next bedtime story, number 6. Sweet dreams about wonderful, naughty Krishna and all his friends in Vrindavan. Namaste.